someone invaded your home, someone knocked out a door, someone killed your members of your family.
You don't have a
tries
choice.
to kill you.
You don't really have a choice. Yeah.
You either surrender and die, or you fight back.
Yeah.
And then you just hope that someone will not twist your arm back and will not tell you to surrender.
So whatever happens in Kyiv or whatever said in the Oval Office, is that in a parallel universe?
They need to engage because they are in danger. And it takes only 24 hours to get for a Russian tank to Berlin. It takes only 20 minutes for Russian nuclear missile to hit London.
Hello and welcome to the Fourcast. It is a peace plan with 28 points, apparently, none of them likely to favor Ukraine. US and Russian officials have drafted new proposals to end the war, but they would appear to require major concessions from President Zelenskyy over territory and weapons. Will they be acceptable to the Ukrainian president? And what about his forces fighting on the front line? Well, one man who knows both is the documentary filmmaker Mstyslav Chernov, who won a BAFTA and an Oscar last year and has a new film just out that follows a brigade of soldiers as they attempt to liberate the village of Andriivka in the east of Ukraine, the sort of place that would be included in the new Russian-controlled territory, should there be a deal. Mstyslav is here today in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you for
let's just get the news out of the way, and there is always news about Ukraine. This peace plan cooked up by the Russians and the Americans. Apparently the Ukrainians have only just been told about it. Europeans have not been involved in it at all. Do you know anything about it? Do you think it might be a runner?
What I've seen so far, it has been very similar to the Russian demands that were given to Ukrainians and US diplomats in Turkey. Mm-hmm. And the demands are maximalist and
from the Russian point of view.
And when I think the way it looks for Ukrainians, the way it feels for Ukrainians is that it's rewarding the attacker and just punishing the victim, and also taking away the possibility for the victim to keep protecting themselves. And I think that's what's scary. It doesn't just ask for land concessions, it also ensures that Ukraine will not be able to fight in case this invasion continues.
Which is negating the whole point of the war, what Ukrainians have been fighting for the last 3.5 years, almost 4 years.
Yes, and when we say war, that for Ukrainians, this is a war of self-defense. This is an invasion that started more than 10 years ago, since occupation of Crimea and Donbass, and continues. And Ukrainians know that a peace deal that was made before didn't work. And Russia still attacked Ukraine, so they know the price of these peace deals. But again, whenever I'm on the front line, whenever I'm speaking to civilians or soldiers or politicians, there is no other nation in the world that wants peace more. And I think so far, every requirement that was made by both allies and Russia, the invader, has been met and agreed on, and Ukraine has been saying over and over, we want peace, let's just finish it.
At any price.
Let's just stop it.
Yeah.
That's just what. But again, there's a difference between surrender and peace, right? And what is currently required from Ukraine, as I keep speaking to, again, civilians and soldiers, for all of them, that looks like a demand of surrender.
So the film that you've made, which is extraordinarily powerful, the latest film, and they're all powerful, but this one, 2,000 meters to Andriivka, this is about fighting, spilling blood, your own blood, soldiers' blood, for every inch of territory. And it's about the ultimate sacrifice for your soil, for your bit of earth. And then you've got President Trump saying blithely, oh, we might give it away, we might not give it away. What's the impact of that on people actually on the front line?
I would say limited. And hear me out. There have been many things that have been said since the beginning of 2025. There have been many claims supporting Ukraine and not supporting Ukraine, of that sort of claims that pushed Russian point of view and pushed back on that, and none of that, frankly speaking, has been translated into action. So there is a lot of skepticism both on the front line among the soldiers and civilians towards what they hear. It's just
Are they not listening
It's just
anymore?
not reliable.
Right.
It's just any claims until they are translated into real action are just words. And opinions have been changing every week. So I think it just doesn't work that anymore. As it's not impactful anymore.
So whatever happens in Kyiv or whatever is said in the Oval Office or maybe in Ankara, is that in a parallel universe?
I remember I came back to Ukraine and I asked Fedya, our protagonist of 2,000 Minutes to Andriivka, who is right now not very far from Kharkiv, my hometown, just making sure that I still have a home. He and his platoon and his brigade is the only reason for that. And I asked him, hey, how do you feel about what happened between President Zelenskyy and President Trump? And he said, oh my God, first I thought we're all screwed. But then he said, but then I realized at least we don't have any more illusions and we know that we can rely only on ourselves. And I think that disillusionment also comes with a sense of unity that you see in Ukrainians. And that's what saved Ukraine in the beginning of full-scale invasion. That resolve and that unity.
The resilience, the unity amongst the people.
Yes.
To survive with an independent nation state.
And a sense of agency. You see the core difference between Ukrainian and a citizen of a totalitarian regime or authoritarian regime of anywhere in the world, I'm not going to point fingers right now, is that there is an understanding, and you as a citizen have power over your government, have power over what's going to happen to your community and what's going to happen to your country. And that led to miscalculation of Russian forces that came into Ukraine and thought everyone's going to surrender. That didn't happen because each person in Ukraine had that sense of agency. And what usually authoritarian regimes do, the first thing any authoritarian regime does to its people, they educate them in indifference. And that's not how Ukrainians are.
But the Russians are also more resilient than we thought they might be at the beginning of the war. Is that down to the amount of money that Putin is paying soldiers? Have they developed their own resilience about the war aims, even if they started with propaganda? I mean, I know you're not spending time in Russia, but what do you think?
I'm not spending time in Russia.
But what are you imagining is happening in their brains?
I'm not spending time in Russia. I'm not Russian. I have no idea what's happening in their heads. But what I, as I told you just now, I think there is this core difference of the self-agency of making decisions as a citizen on the Ukrainian side, and probably, I suppose, maybe the absence of that. So on the Russian side. So they follow the rules, they follow the orders, they comply with the government that tells them to do something, even if they don't agree with it. Although I do feel that there is a lot of agreement among the Russian population with what Russia does in Ukraine. A lot of that is due to propaganda and during just the colonial culture of Russia as an empire that keeps invading neighboring countries, and we see it over and over. And we see them over and over doing the same thing. They invade the neighboring country, hundreds of years. They do the same. They invade the neighboring country. They commit violent crimes against the population. They pressure so that the remaining surviving population will pressure their government to comply with all the demands that Russia is giving them. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. The violent attack on Chernobyl just yesterday. And all the spike of the attacks after the beginning of the negotiations, you see the spike of the attacks and drones and missiles. It's not a coincidence. It's a negotiating tactics, the terror against the civilians. And that's what they think is going to happen, that the Ukrainians will pressure the government to stop resisting. But did it happen to UK when UK was bombed during the Second World War? Did people lose their resolve? I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, the war's been, as I said earlier, the war's been going on for a very long time now. I don't think any of us would have thought it would go on for this long. So I wonder if the agency, the resilience that you describe and that we see in your film, is the biggest enemy of that fatigue, just tiredness?
Yes. You see, to speak about the fatigue is a luxury thing, and I think I can say here sitting with you that I'm tired, but I wouldn't allow myself to do so because I know that there are people right now in the trench or people who are evacuating civilians from the cities that are being invaded and bombed, medics, just people who help and try to survive. All they might be tired, but they are trying to survive. There's a difference. You know, I often see this twist that some of the politicians around the world do to present this as an equal fight between two forces for land. That's not that. This is home invasion. Someone invaded your home. Someone knocked out a door. Someone killed your members of your family.
You don't have a choice.
Tries to kill you.
You don't really have a choice. Yeah.
You either surrender and die, what we saw in Bucha, Izium, Kherson, Mariupol, or you fight back.
Yeah.
And then you just hope that someone will not twist your arm back and will not tell you to surrender. That's just the only hope you have for now. You know, you sort of hope for help, but also you hope that people will not twist your arms behind your back and say surrender to the attacker.
Because, you know, we see it very much from our point of view, you know, whether you're in Washington or in London, you know, what weapons are we providing? You know, is the Ukrainian army doing the most with those weapons? But actually, when you're in, you know, 2,000 meters from Andriivka, it's very local, isn't it? It's very specific. It's about a tree and a rock and a piece of earth.
Because every tree, every rock bears meaning. When you are at the land of your childhood, when this is where you spent your time when you were a kid, that's where you went to your grandmother's home, this is where you first fell in love, all that has meaning. You are going to fight for that. And you, of course, going to be upset if someone just, you know, tries to give it away. There are necessary steps. I'm, again, speaking from a journalistic and from a filmmaker point of view, I think that there are some difficult decisions that can be made or not to achieve that peace. But that doesn't take away the pain of loss of that land and the value of every meter of it, of every tree. Imagine right now, 25% of Ukraine is occupied, almost 25%. Or only 25%, maybe that. Imagine 25% of London was occupied, and Russians would be like, oh, give it to us. That's fine. I mean, this is ours now. Would that be acceptable?
So if you're fighting for that every tree, for that meter, you know, leading up to the village that is your home, if you're giving it your everything, do you always have in the back of your mind that actually one day someone with a stroke of a pen could just give it away in some deal? And then what's the point of fighting for it?
Again, this is something, of course, you're afraid of. You're afraid to lose something very, very dear to you. But the most dear to you is actually your community. Fairly speaking, human connections to your family, connections to your community, to your city, to your region, and ultimately to your country is the most valuable. This is the country. It's also land, but not only land, you know, it's people. So, of course, human lives are the most important.
Yeah. When you made 20 Days in Mariupol, it was all about Russian tanks and artillery, and that was scary. I mean, I remember being there at the beginning of the war, not in Mariupol, elsewhere, and it was terrifying. But drones, which is what is dictating the war at the moment, that's even much worse, isn't it? Tell us about the drones.
The warfare has changed over past 2 years since we shot 2,000 meters to Andriivka. the war changed completely. It's all about drones, robotic systems, AI-driven killing machines.
Yeah. Used by both sides. Yeah.
Yes, and the competition for who comes with deadlier and more advanced weapons is unfolding right in front of our eyes. But again, for Ukrainians, it's a matter of survival. Sure. We talk about weapons that have been sent to Ukraine, and I think I've seen they've been making a difference. But also, what we know now, that right now, the 80% of all casualties on the front line is are drone casualties. And those are not, those are assembled in basements.
Sure.
By just regular people, by civilians.
And for those who haven't been in a drone battlefield, I mean, just describe what it's like having that noise above your head all the time. Describe what it's like that there's an eye in the sky that just keeps that knows where you are.
Imagine there are vultures circling around you all the time, and death is walking around you all the time.
Yeah.
And you can die every minute, and you're seen by someone who wants to kill you every minute. And also, they're not only drones that are targeting you, they're also drones that are fighting each other in the air. There's always like a mother drone. There are smaller reconnaissance drones, suicide drones. I've seen the Turels with the machine guns. It's insane and it's scary, and that's the new reality.
And you can't hide from it.
There is no hiding for it. And also, frontline journalism, as we know it, it's gone. It's just not there anymore.
Sense? Too dangerous.
You can't survive on the front line with a camera. You can't be there. Mm-hmm. You just can't get close to it. And that's the problem, because you see, I have many people asking me, "Oh, Mstyslav, is the war over?" Like, people are not fighting anymore, right? And I'm saying, no, really. They are fighting, and it's as violent as it was before. It's just the only thing we see now is the picture from a drone. That's it. There's just no way to film it. And when there's no way to film it, there is less interest in the audience. And when there's less interest in the audience, the media is sending less people on the front line, and that's the circle that repeats itself.
Are you worried that the world is getting bored? I mean, in Ukraine, no one's getting bored. You can't get bored.
I can't say that word because it's not a popularity. It's not a TV show that has to compete for attention.
But does the outside world need to engage for this thing to end?
They do, but they don't need to engage. But they don't need to engage because they have to feel something for Ukrainians. They need to engage because they are in danger. I can't communicate clearly enough how different what Russia exports and what Russia says to its own people is. What Russia says to its own people, that they are at war with UK, with Europe, with US. They are currently fighting and actually winning. That's what they say. And it takes only 24 hours to get for a Russian tank to Berlin. It takes only 20 minutes for a Russian nuclear missile to hit London. And I've seen this TV show when they were saying, all this big talk that UK gives. If we launch one missile, it will be just an empty island. And they live with that in mind every day. And we don't feel it because it's very dangerous. Ukrainians have made that mistake. They thought 2014 was terrible, but things are fine, and then we just kind of let it go. Didn't prepare for what's coming, or didn't prepare enough. And here we go.
Just finally, there's been a lot of reporting about corruption scandals in Kyiv. I mean, a big corruption scandal involving some of the president's closest associates and friends. He has now vowed to crack down on this. Again, do the guys the guys and the women on the front line, are they deeply depressed by that? Does this motivate them?
That's a very interesting question, and that's what I would expect. But actually, that's not what happens. Everyone I spoke has this disappointment, obviously, but also they are happy. And the reason why they're happy, because there is a chain of events here. Let's not forget. Anti-corruption agency gets dismantled, right? And then thousands of people go on the streets in a wartime. Thousands of people go on the streets of Kyiv and other cities around Ukraine and exercise direct democracy. They peacefully protest to tell their government to fix the issues. Government does it. Great. This anti-corruption agency comes back into power and starts cracking down on the corruption.
Right.
And it's working. And it's amazing. Like, I wish that happened to Ukraine many years ago.
Yeah.
So yes, it's stressing and it's really bad timing. But also there is so much hope there. That means something Ukrainians were fighting for is actually working. Fedya, again, our protagonist, he said, I'm looking at all these young people who are in the streets protesting, and I know who I'm fighting for. I'm not fighting for the government. I'm not fighting for like abstract ideas. I'm fighting for those young people who exercise their direct democracy. And I believe him.
Do you think that we'll be having this conversation about the war this time next year?
I wish we will not be speaking about it. I wish we'll be talking about my new film, which will be about the end of the war. And we'll be like summarizing what happened, and we'll be happy that it's all over.
Mstyslav Chernov, thank you very much indeed. That's it from the Fourcast. You heard it there from one of the great documentary makers documenting this extraordinary war that has gone on for far too long. See you next time.